Thank you very much, Mayor Marl, and thank you everyone for your time tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some information about the City of Saline road millage renewal. The current road millage was approved by voters in 2018. We asked voters to approve a 1 mill levy through 2023. So as of right now, that millage will expire next calendar year. But as you may be aware, in community planning, we look multiple years out. So we need to have a really good picture of what's coming down the pipeline, including what sort of funding will be available for those projects, which is why we're asking residents to consider now a renewal of that millage. The levy first hit in 2019, so I'll talk a little bit about how we've used those dollars from 2019 through this fiscal year, and largely focusing on reconstruction and resurfacing projects, but also know some of those dollars go towards the general maintenance of our roads to avoid any deterioration and provide for driver safety in winter weather. So what have we accomplished with those dollars since 2019? We have been able to use those dollars to support improvements on 15 different road segments throughout the city, which is pretty impressive for a 4-year span for a community of our size. The first year the road was dedicated, I believe we had 3 to 4 projects, and we've kind of consistently hit that mark every year since. One of the projects that you see there on the left, Woodland Drive, actually won the American Public Works Association Michigan Chapter Project of the Year Awards. So we're very proud of the outcomes of that project. These are just some before and afters of projects throughout town that have been completed with millage dollars, as well as the kind of compilation of the capital stack that we use to fund road projects. There were certainly several early candidates for these projects, and I think there are residents who have let us know that they feel there's definitely more work to be done. Really, these road projects are designed to really stop road failure in its tracks. And I think on projects like you see here with, again, Woodland, and then, Hesher, could you remind me, what's
I think the one on the bottom is Mills before and after. So
Yes,
the bottom
Mills.
Yeah, Mills.
And then before, I think, is Mills right in the middle. And Woodland, I think the top right one might be Mills also.
Top right one, I think, is Highland.
Highland, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
So a little bit about where we secure funding for our road projects. The local road millage has really made a difference, as you can see from 2019. The road millage, the local road millage, is the portion you see in red. It has served as an essential gap in financing and really making projects possible that would not have been possible otherwise. In addition to the local road millage dollars, we do receive money from the state, and Washtenaw County has its own dedicated road millage, which the city receives a small portion of, usually around $200,000 a year. The breakdown of those different financing sources in a little bit more detail is available in the pamphlet. So how do we decide which roads we're going to approve in any given year? Well, biannually, the city assesses its road conditions using a process called PASER rating. This ranks the roads from 10 being brand new, fantastic condition, to 1, which is the lowest, which is just total structural failure. You can see on the map on the left the PASER ratings for 2022. We do have a significant portion of roadways that are in that poor rating zone, the 1 to 3 range, which really targets them for reconstruction or very serious resurfacing projects. Our goal with this millage renewal is to get our overall rating up to a 7. Currently, we're at a 5.4 for citywide average for those ratings. When we're looking at PASER ratings, we're also considering whether any underground utility projects will be occurring at a given time so that we can achieve an economies of scale with our projects. And then we'll look at asset management planning so that we're improving the life expectancy of the roadway instead of just waiting for everything to fail. what do I mean, I guess, by asset management planning? We like to think of it as something everyone can relate to. So the roof on your house. If you just put a roof on your house, do absolutely nothing to it to improve it or respond to repairs, you're going to get maybe 20 years of life expectancy. If you meet the need of minor repairs, maybe do a re-roofing or tear off with new shingles, you could get 40, 60 years out of the life of your roof. The same sort of life expectancy and the same sort of maintenance planning goes into streets. If we can meet those roads with preventative maintenance, if we can crack seal, if we can do an overlay or what we call a mill and fill, which is just taking off a few inches and laying down new surface, we can dramatically improve the life of a roadway rather than having to go through the very expensive process of totally reconstructing, waiting for things to fail, and spending millions of dollars to reconstruct it. And really this approach, this asset management-based approach to planning, is a nationally recognized model and best practice. So we're trying to follow best practice standards in the decision-making processes that we follow today. With that in mind, the city has identified some early targets that we may be looking at in the coming years, assuming that this millage is able to pass. The upcoming fiscal year, again, is designed, the upcoming 3 to 4 fiscal years is designed with us trying to get to an average PASER rating overall of 7. The current capital improvement plan includes kind of 10 to 15 unique road segments. Thankfully, for some of them, we've already secured federal aid. So North Ann Arbor Street and Clark Street in particular, we know we're going to get some federal funding support to match those dollars and really help those local dollars go even further. But ultimately, the final decision about what gets included is going to be dependent on that funding, the capacity we have, and overall the needs. So as we go through updating PASER, as we identify opportunities for economies of scale with other utility projects, there is some fluctuation with our capital improvement plan from year to year. That process, though, takes place annually. And, for example, I already know we've got residents who are interested in seeing us look more closely this coming fiscal year when we're doing our capital improvement planning at streets like Russell or in the next few years, the Northview subdivision. Usually that capital improvement plan process takes place in early in the calendar year each year. So if you have any interest in learning more about how we do that, we always have public meetings and that information is available. We're happy to collect your information tonight and share with you when those meetings will be. One of the biggest things that we have to consider, the reality of the situation, is what it costs today to produce a road. Inflation has had a very dramatic effect on how far our road dollars go. And the last 2 years in particular have resulted in effect, road dollars being about as useful, $1 in road dollars today being about as useful as it was in 2019. It's an unfortunate reality that we have to work through, but construction costs especially have been hit hard by inflation, and the cost of asphalt itself has really skyrocketed in that time, even more than the national inflation trend. So having a local source to help us fill that gap is really going to be the difference between projects happening and not happening. I will turn it over to City Treasurer Cole to talk a little bit more about the cost impact.
I certainly feel the hit of inflation every time I go to the grocery store. I have a 17-year-old that plays water polo for 3 hours a day, and $100 does not get me what it used to anymore. So as we're talking about the cost of voters, we certainly respect that and certainly take that to heart in our consideration of the choice that you're going to be making. So if you want to talk about the average cost of voters, to calculate your estimated tax, you'll really take your taxable value and divide it by 1,000. For the average home here in Saline, the taxable value is about $116,000. So on average, a single family residential cost per month actually is $9.69. So on an annual basis, it's just a little bit less than $120 a year. So next, we really wanted to kind of go down the avenue of what will we do if the millage doesn't pass. What we've done is we've taken a look at the existing millage of $500,000 annually. It really does fill this this gap that we've been talking about for capital projects and maintenance. It also allows us, if we're get a grant and it requires matching funds, to have matching funds available so that we're eligible for the grant. But like I was saying, we certainly understand that as our organization is facing these challenges, that residents themselves are faced with higher costs as a result of the increased inflation. So in the event that the millage is not passed, we kind of wanted to make a little bit of a plan. So it's not, excuse me one second. So preliminarily, we have identified cuts that would be to services, maintenance, and projects to make up the difference. It would include things like delaying snow plowing activities during storm events to avoid overtime, decrease preventative maintenance such as crack sealing, and also eliminating certain capital projects. Unfortunately, this also reduces our capacity for securing federal grant dollars, as I was just talking about. And since the local millage generally serves to meet the matching funds, some of those programs would not be applicable. This would also mean, as a result of that our overall PASER rating is likely to remain stagnant or decrease without the gap financing to fully implement our capital plans. So I just want you all to know that we all at the city here deeply value your consideration, and certainly given the economy right now, our wish for not only our residents but our staff is to act on your wishes. So we always keep our residents' wishes at heart.